Hey A&Peeps, this is Dr. Jones checking in. This is A&P 1, Lab Test 1, and I've completely lost track of the video numbers. But we are working on the green booklet, page 11, with lab assignment 3, tissues, and the integumentary system. But first, we need to talk about figure 7.1, which looks like this. So we can see that we've got atoms combined to make, well, molecules, organic and inorganic, and they work together to make cells. The cells make extracellular stuff. Now that's something we had not said before, but they do. And the cells and the extracellular stuff work together to make tissues. I can't point, the book's too heavy. And there are 4 types of tissues. The tissues combine to form organs, and the organs combine to form organ systems, and then that makes an organism, which is you. So the different types of tissues, we've got epithelia. They cover surfaces, line the insides, and make glandular secretions. A connective tissue is filler. And the muscle tissue is, well, your muscles, and your neural tissue is your brain, your nerves, and all those things. Okay, so we're going to talk now about epithelia. So there's your 4 different types of tissue: epithelia, connective tissue, muscle tissue, and neural tissue. You will need to know that the muscle tissue and nervous tissue are excitable. So you will know all about that. All right, so let's talk about how to classify the epithelia. We're going to cover the epithelia first. This information is going to be on lecture test 2, so you do need this information for lecture as well as lab, but not lecture test 1, lecture test 2. Okay. All right, so we classify epithelia in 2 ways. We're going to go across the top with the shape of the cell. So first is squamous, which means flat, like squashed. And next is cuboidal, which means cube-shaped. And columnar, which is column-shaped, taller than it is wide. And the other way we classify epithelia are by the number of layers. So if there's 1 layer, it is simple. It's a simple epithelium. Oh, 1 epithelium, 2 epithelia. And if there's more than 1, then it's stratified. Like strata, like layers. They use it in geology too. Let's see. Okay. I may already have a video on this, so I will keep this brief. But what happens here with a simple squamous epithelium is you have a single layer of flat cells with a nucleus. So this is your epithelium. And then underneath the epithelium is a basement membrane. And sometimes that's called a basal lamina. Basement membrane is the English, and basal lamina, B-A-S-A-L-L-A-M-I-N-A, which means basement membrane, is the Latin. So if you see either of those, you need to know what they mean. And then underneath the basement membrane is a connective tissue. So the epithelium and the connective tissue both work together to make the basement membrane that connects them. Okay. So for simple cuboidal epithelium, it's a similar thing, except you have cube-shaped cells with nuclei. Just draw a bunch in here. And underneath that is a basement membrane. And under the basement membrane is a connective tissue. Every time you're going to have an epithelium, a basement membrane, and an underlying connective tissue. In fact, later we'll call this group a body membrane, but we'll get there. So the columnar are tall, thin cells with a nucleus. And under those is a, you got it, basement membrane. And under the basement membrane is an underlying connective tissue. Remember, the connective tissue can act as a filler. So the stratified squamous epithelium has more than one layer. So what happens is the bottom layer tends to be cubes. The bottom layer of a stratified epithelium is generally going to be more cube-shaped, but as you get further up, the layers become flatter, and the name of the tissue is named for the top layer. And here you've got flat cells on the top layer, so it's a stratified squamous epithelium. Stratified squamous epithelium. And underneath that is a basement membrane, and underneath that is a connective tissue. So you've got your pattern, you've got the epithelium, basement membrane, connective tissue every time. Okay. The stratified cuboidal epithelium, we are not covering it in lab. If you put it on the lab test, it is wrong. Stratified columnar epithelium is not on this lab test. If you put stratified columnar on the lab test, it is wrong. Now we will learn these in lecture for, again, lecture test 2. So I will leave a blank one here for you to print, and I would put it in a clear plastic sheet protector. If you're going to print it, put it in a clear plastic sheet protector, and that way you can label it with dry erase markers. I have a dry erase marker, like floating around, and I was like, why do I have a dry erase marker floating around? Maybe I put it away. And this was why for this example. Although if you had like a ultrafine, like a fine or an ultrafine, you could label more things, bigger words, because these chisel tips aren't very good for that. But anyway. Okay, so labeling here. The name of the tissue is simple, squamous, epithelium. Okay, so if you're following along with your booklet, you see where it says microscope slide in the dark, and then next to it in bold, simple squamous epithelium. That is the name of the tissue. If it has this picture and it says ID tissue, you write, type in simple squamous epithelium, and it must be spelled correctly. This next line is a description, single layer of oval flattened cells. I am not testing you over the description. That's just to help you understand what you're looking at. And the next line says ID. Every word after ID is a possible answer on the lab test. ID cell membrane, nucleus, and cytoplasm. So oh, and before I forget, the last line, the location, capillary wall, air sac of lungs, you will be tested over that, but not until lecture test 2. So for now, you just need to know what is this tissue and what are these structures. So if it asks for the structure, it's asking for one of those ID terms. So let's see. ID, the line at the pointer, that is a cell membrane. I hear a little screaming in the background. My 12-year-old is on the phone with her best friend, so they are playing Minecraft online together. So it's COVID times. It works. And what is the structure at the pointer? It is a nucleus. And what's all this stuff in between the cell membrane and the nucleus? That is cytoplasm. That's a C. Can I erase? Let's find out. Ha! Ha-ha. There you go. That's what they can ask on this slide. So next question, why does this look absolutely nothing like what I drew here? What I drew here is a cross section. So imagine if this were if looking down at a tile floor, you're looking at this. What if you drew a cross section of a tile floor? Well, you'd have long skinny tiles, and under that you'd have like a vapor barrier, and under that you'd have subfloor. So that would be the cross-section view, but when you look down at the tile floor, you're going to see, you know, okay, I'm not drawing hexagons. Apparently I'm not drawing squares either. That's terrible. So it depends on if you're looking at the cross-section view, which is what I drew up here, or if you're looking at the superior view looking down at it, which is what you're doing here. You may notice that the cells are roughly hexagonal. Most of your cells are, including the cuboidal and the columnar. When you look down at them from a superior view, they are mostly hexagonal, like honeycomb, because it's the most effective use of stuff for the space. So that's just physics/biology having fun. So if the pointer is pointing right here and it says ID structure, you say